Introduction. Tokyo stands as one of the world's most expensive cities, yet its rental prices remain surprisingly moderate compared to other global capitals. This paradox reveals a complex economic reality that extends far beyond housing costs. The true expense of living in Tokyo emerges from an intricate web of structural factors, historical decisions, and economic mechanisms that shape daily life in ways both visible and hidden. Understanding Tokyo's cost structure requires examining not just what residents pay, but how money flows through the city's economic ecosystem. From transportation networks to consumption taxes, from land ownership patterns to wage structures, each element contributes to an overall cost of living that defies simple explanation. Section 1. The foundation of Tokyo's economic structure. Tokyo's economic landscape was fundamentally shaped by decisions made in the decades following World War II. The city's reconstruction prioritized industrial development and corporate infrastructure over residential expansion. This choice created lasting patterns in how land is valued, how businesses operate, and ultimately how costs are distributed across society. The Japanese economic model that emerged during the high growth period established a system where corporations held significant power in determining urban development. Large companies acquired vast land holdings in central Tokyo, creating a concentration of commercial real estate that continues to influence property values today. This corporate dominance meant that residential development often took secondary priority, pushing housing further from city centers and creating the sprawling metropolitan region that exists today. Land ownership patterns in Tokyo differ markedly from other major cities. A significant portion of valuable urban land remains held by corporations, religious institutions, and long-established families. This concentration of ownership limits the supply of land available for development, creating artificial scarcity that affects all property types, not just residential real estate. The result is a market where land values remain high even when rental prices for apartments stay relatively controlled. The relationship between land value and building value in Tokyo follows a unique pattern. Unlike cities, where buildings represent the primary asset, Tokyo's real estate market places disproportionate emphasis on land itself. Buildings depreciate rapidly in the Japanese system, often considered nearly worthless after 30 years. This depreciation model means that property investment focuses on land acquisition rather than building maintenance or improvement, fundamentally altering how real estate markets function. Section 2. Transportation costs and urban geography. Tokyo's transportation system represents both an engineering marvel and a significant financial burden for residents. The extensive rail network that makes the city functional also creates substantial daily expenses that accumulate into major annual costs. Unlike cities where public transportation is heavily subsidized, Tokyo's rail system operates primarily through private companies that must generate profit. The average Tokyo commuter spends between 15,000 and 30,000 yen monthly on transportation, depending on distance and route. This expenditure, often exceeding 300,000 yen annually, represents a hidden cost that doesn't appear in housing statistics, but significantly impacts overall living expenses. The privatized nature of Tokyo's rail system means that efficiency comes at a price, with fare structures designed to maximize revenue rather than minimize costs to users. Distance from central Tokyo directly correlates with transportation expenses. Residents who choose more affordable housing in outer suburbs face longer commutes and higher transportation costs, often negating the savings from lower rent. This creates a geographic cost trap where housing affordability and transportation expenses work in opposition, making it difficult to reduce overall living costs through residential location choices. The rail system structure also influences employment patterns and economic opportunity. Jobs concentrated in central Tokyo require expensive commutes for those living in affordable areas, while housing near employment centers commands premium prices. This spatial mismatch between affordable housing and job locations creates a structural cost that affects millions of residents daily. Section 3. The consumption tax system. Japan's consumption tax represents a significant component of Tokyo's high cost of living, yet its impact often goes underestimated in cost comparisons. Currently set at 10% for most goods and services, with a reduced rate of 8% for food and certain other items, this tax adds substantial expense to daily life in ways that compound over time. The consumption tax applies broadly across nearly all purchases, from groceries to electronics, from restaurant meals to clothing. Unlike income taxes that vary by earnings, consumption taxes affect all residents equally in proportion to their spending. For a household spending 3 million yen annually on taxable goods and services, the consumption tax alone adds approximately 300,000 yen to yearly expenses. The regressive nature of consumption taxes means they impact lower-income households more severely as a percentage of total income. While wealthy residents can absorb the tax more easily, those with modest incomes find that consumption taxes claim a larger share of their disposable income, effectively increasing the cost of living more dramatically for those least able to afford it. Tokyo's consumption tax exists within a broader tax structure that includes resident taxes, national income taxes, and various other levies. The combined tax burden, while not exceptional by international standards, contributes to a situation where gross income and net purchasing power diverge significantly. Understanding Tokyo's true cost of living requires accounting for these tax obligations that reduce the effective value of earned income. Section 4. Food and Daily Necessities. Food costs in Tokyo reflect a combination of import dependence, distribution systems, and cultural preferences that create prices higher than many comparable cities. Japan imports approximately 60% of its food supply, making grocery costs vulnerable to exchange rates, international commodity prices, and shipping expenses. The distribution system for food in Japan involves multiple intermediaries between producers and consumers. This multi-layered structure, while ensuring quality and freshness, adds cost at each stage. Wholesale markets, regional distributors, and retail outlets each take margins that accumulate into final prices significantly higher than in countries with more direct distribution channels. Fresh produce and meat command particularly high prices in Tokyo. A kilogram of beef can easily cost 3,000 to 5,000 yen, while fresh fruit often sells at prices that seem extraordinary to foreign visitors. These costs reflect not just import expenses, but also domestic agricultural policies that protect local producers through tariffs and regulations that limit competition. Dining out in Tokyo, while offering excellent value at the lower end, becomes expensive quickly when moving beyond basic restaurants. A typical dinner at a mid-range establishment easily costs 3,000 to 5,000 yen per person, while higher-end dining reaches price levels comparable to the world's most expensive cities. The cultural importance of food quality and presentation means that even everyday meals often cost more than functionally equivalent options elsewhere. Section 5. Wage Structures and Income Reality. Tokyo's wage structure presents a complex picture that helps explain why the city feels expensive despite seemingly adequate salaries. The average annual income in Tokyo hovers around 5 to 6 million yen, appearing reasonable until examined against actual living costs and compared to wages in other expensive global cities. Japanese salary systems traditionally included various allowances and bonuses that supplemented base pay. Housing allowances, transportation allowances, and biannual bonuses form significant portions of total compensation. However, these supplementary payments have declined in recent decades as companies restructured employment practices, effectively reducing real income even when base salaries remained stable. The seniority-based wage system that characterized Japanese employment for decades meant that younger workers earned significantly less than their older colleagues, regardless of productivity or skill. While this system is gradually changing, it created generations of workers who spent years earning below-market wages, accumulating less savings and building less wealth than peers in other developed economies. Income growth in Tokyo has stagnated for nearly 3 decades, a phenomenon unique among major global cities. While costs for many goods and services have risen, Wages have remained largely flat since the early 1990s. This stagnation means that Tokyo residents face increasing costs without corresponding income growth, effectively making the city more expensive over time, even when nominal prices stay constant. Section 6. Real estate beyond rent.